Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you find yourself in the world, and welcome to another episode of It's a Football Thing, or as I'm calling this one, It's a Gooner Thing, because there is no Robbie tonight, there is no RJ. It's myself, joined by the amazing Lottie from Cannon Chatter, and James Rowe. So, guys, thank you for joining me tonight. I'm looking forward to it. How are you both, Lottie? How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well. I mean, it's 10:30 in the morning over here. The clock's changed, so I'm a bit out of sorts, but I'm good. It's wet and windy outside, but I am even happier to be here. So thank you for having me on.
Wet and windy in London. Who'd have thought?
Mm.
Who'd have thought? James, how are you? Joining us all the way from the Netherlands.
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Yes, similar weather here. Climate in both countries has always been very much the same, even though we get a little bit more sun during the summer. But yeah, keeping very busy with my football interviews, and of course, keeping a sharp eye on the love, which is the Arsenal. So excited to be on.
And look, before we get into it, I have put all of Lottie and James's details in the description. Please make sure you check out Cannon Chatter, where Lottie runs that with Stephen and G. Absolutely amazing Arsenal content. I try and get in whenever the time difference is kind. James,
you're always there every morning, Scott. 6 a.m. on the dot. We see you. Don't worry about that. We love it.
This is the beauty of having a 2.5-year-old at home, because generally I would like to be asleep at 6 a.m., but I'm not. So he may as well sub himself. James, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with The Secret Footballer.
Well, for people hearing me for the first time today, my name is James Rowe. I'm a football writer originally from the UK, but I immigrated to the Netherlands more than 15 years ago now. And for the last 5.5 years, I've been interviewing professional players and managers at all different levels of world football. And it's been a real privilege to speak to, among others, the likes of Bob Wilson, Jamie Carragher, Graham Potter, Viv Anderson, Kevin Campbell, Trevor Steven, who played for Olympique Marseille in France. And the great thing is that every professional player has got a story to tell. You know, it's not about one particular team. It's not about one particular manager. I always say it's a world game. And you learn so much, and you try to get not just about the footballing side of a career, but also the human element of football, because it really helps to educate fans in terms of realizing that there's not a pot of gold at the end of every transfer, for example. That you can't plan a career. You can have dreams and ambitions, but you can't plan a career. And it very much brings home the message that timing is the most important thing in football.
Absolutely. And look, tonight or this morning for you guys is going to be purely Arsenal focus. I wanted to start, guys, with your expectations. So I know going into the season, we did a prediction, and I called Arsenal to finish 5th. So my prediction was that we'd fall just outside the top 4 in 5th place. I was quite optimistic coming into the season. We then had those first 3 games, which feel like a long time ago, which is a good thing. And they kind of rattled me a bit. I'm not going to lie. I was feeling quite rattled. I wasn't expecting points. However, I was expecting us to show a bit more gusto, to go for it a bit more. So after those, I was starting to think, God, what am I getting myself into calling us to finish 5th? However, in reality at the moment, it's not looking like the worst possible shout. Lottie, we might start with you. What were your expectations for the team coming into this season?
When we did our season preview on Cannon Chatter, I have called for either 5th or 6th. I knew the first 3 fixtures were going to be really tricky. I mean, we sent Brentford down a long time ago, in 1941, I think it was. So they were going to come out and play like it was their Champions League final, which they did. And then you've got the Premier League champions and the champions of Europe back to back. We're not going to get any points out of that because we don't have the depth that they do at the moment. So I know it was going to be a rough ride for start of season, but I'm still looking at 5th or 6th at the moment for us overall.
Yeah, look, you and I tend to think very similarly about how the club's going, which is always nice to have an ally who thinks that way. James, what about you? What were your kind of hopes or thoughts for this season on Arsenal?
Well, my first hopes was that we'd win a trophy. And for me, that's the most important thing because it breeds confidence. And in terms of the base of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. And in terms of league position, I thought possibly top 8, for example. I think a lot of fans do forget how long a football season actually is. You know, people love to talk about football. People love to make great predictions, but it's very much the rhythm of a football season. You know, how games stack up, players going away on international duty, even lower teams having good patches of form, purple patches of form, especially at home. And, you know, every game is difficult. You know, the Premier League is one of the best leagues in the world, if not the best. And there's so much quality now. I mean, I was watching Liverpool-Brighton yesterday. And when you saw that Brighton midfield, you know, the quality in that midfield alone for Brighton and Hove Albion, who many football fans might remember had a period of being in the second division and in the third division for a long, long time. So it just goes to show how quickly things can change in football. But I think for Arsenal this season, it's hopefully winning a trophy. I think the League Cup represents the best opportunity. I know people love to talk about the great draw we had yesterday, but I kind of signed a little bit of caution or signaled a little bit of caution with the, you know, remember Bradford in 2012, you know, you can't pick and choose, but we've got a great opportunity to win the League Cup for the first time since 1993. And it's a long, long time. And it remains the first ever trophy I ever saw Arsenal win. You know, as a young Arsenal fan, and my hero, Paul Merson, scoring in the final and getting man of the match in 93. And we haven't won it since. And, you know, it's a great opportunity to win the trophy. I think the FA Cup, yes, we've got a wonderful history in that. But I think the League Cup represents the greatest opportunity to win this season. And then hopefully build on what we've got. Because when you change manager, you know, you're literally changing the entire ethos of a team, from everything from mentality to youth development to formation to making players better. And obviously with what we changed with Unai Emery and of inexperienced Mikel Arteta learning on the job still, it's about making sure that we have continuity. You know, that's the most important thing. It's been very interesting to see how we go. I think one important part which not many people talk about, although we've had a great run of form recently and it's brilliant, it's great to see, it's very promising. I think we still need to see more from the assistants of Stauffenberg and Steve Round, because as an assistant, you are there to provoke the manager into thinking in a different way. And as an assistant, you've got to help the manager. If you don't help your manager, you leave him on his own. You've got to be in terms of the way you want to think about football, play football. So really, at the minute, it's still very much early days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really liked your point about it being a long season. We've got FPL Rubber Ducky, a good friend of the show, in here saying 100% it's a long season. The Brentford game, and I agree with this, probably shouldn't have taken place with the COVID outbreak. And I dare say, had it not been the opening match, they may have stalled that. But they did set a precedent. We had tough opening fixtures, and people who were calling for Mikel Arteta's head in September, I don't think we're looking at the bigger picture. We've got, in reality, a rookie manager. Okay, where it doesn't matter about in or out. He is still a rookie manager who is learning on the job. Okay, but to me, a key part of him learning on the job is that staff around him and how much they can bring to the table in terms of how they'll support him. I'll get your opinion on that in just a sec, Lottie. I want to say good afternoon to Matt. Welcome to the show. If you are joining us for the first time, please hit that subscribe button. Lottie understands with Canon Chatter the amount of work that goes into putting out content. You truly are grateful for every sub. So if it's your first time, welcome. Please make sure it's not your last time. Lottie, how do you feel about the way things are shaping up for Mikel Arteta and his staff? Because quite simply, we've had a very good October. A couple of blips, but nothing to me that was too disheartening. How have you felt about it?
As you know, Scott, I've been to every home game so far this season, and it's getting, apart from maybe Palace, it's been a reasonably good season. Brighton, I expected a 0-0 draw. We've only won there maybe once since they came up, and that was Lacazette's goal, I think last season or season before. Can't think off the top of my head. But the results have been good. Have been really good, especially from what we saw at the beginning of August. I mean, with Arteta, I think, as you said, there's no in or out. It doesn't matter if you change the manager or not. It'll be still the same set of players, and the new manager would have to come in and get the best of what's got out of them if they did go for his head. But this run of the last 9 games, we've done really well, really well. I'll be honest with you. Yesterday, I was expecting to lose at Leicester, and I'm just glad they proved me wrong.
Absolutely, and I'm very happy to be proven wrong. Anytime when it comes to me not expecting a win, but one thing that's really, and I've noticed this a lot today in the wake of our great performance against Leicester, because make no mistake, it was a brilliant performance by everybody. But you see opposition fans and some of the hate or the shade that's thrown. Like I've seen, Jason Cundy and so many fans come out and say, Aaron Ramsdale, the save wasn't that good. Well, you have to kind of look at these opposition fans and say, we signed Aaron Ramsdale and you bantered us telling us that we'd signed a keeper who was going to get relegated and who, was underperforming. Then we drew with Crystal Palace and we were told that it was the end of the world and Crystal Palace we should be, humiliating. And we've seen what Crystal Palace have done under Patrick Vieira. We beat Spurs convincingly last month, and it wasn't that we were great, it was that Spurs were poor. But then you see United beating Spurs today, and it's United are back, that they've risen from the dead. Why do you think, James, as someone who's worked within the industry and who's reported on football, do you feel like there is a little bit of a harsher treatment for Arsenal? And if so, why do you think that is? Or do you think maybe I'm being a little bit emotionally sensitive tonight?
Well, to bring you back to your first point, I've been fortunate enough to interview Jason Cundy about his playing career. And, obviously coming through the setup at Chelsea, which was his club, and then making the transfer to Tottenham, where he hardly played due to a back injury, which really affected him on the pitch and also off the pitch. And you've got to remember that these pundits, they've also played the game. And I think it's very much a sign of the times where on Twitter, you get a lot of knowledgeable Arsenal fans and a lot of fans who like to kind of rebuff what pundits say when they forget that some pundits have played the game. And that's the most important thing. And I think it's just very much kind of the times where they're looking for talking points. I see TalkSport. I've spoken on TalkSport before about Dutch players and managers, the likes of Philip Cocu arriving at Derby County and what he achieved at PSV Eindhoven and in his playing career. And sometimes on their Twitter feed, they will tweet out, what's going wrong at Tottenham, what's going wrong at Arsenal, or if you was the manager, who would you sign? And I think what it kind of feeds is a kind of notion that it's like championship manager. But in professional football, nothing could be further from the truth. You've got so many people working behind the scenes. You've got managers, you've got player welfare officers, you've got psychologists. It's simply not the case of one particular substitution or one particular player entering the fray and everything running like clockwork. I think the great thing about Arsenal at the minute is the collectiveness of the team. We're seeing a real collective. And if you look at all the great Arsenal teams down the years from all the different generations, the one thing they've all had in common is a great collective and a great work ethic to work together as a team. And I just think with certain pundits as well, it's also to look at, if you look outside of the Premier League, if you look at, for example, the attention which is put on Barcelona and Real Madrid in La Liga, the attention which is put on Paris Saint-Germain and Marseille in France, the attention which is put on Bayern Munich and Dortmund in Germany. It's not just exclusive to the Premier League. I suppose it's just the cultural differences of how forthright people might be. But I think in some cases, people or stations or producers maybe, or TV channels are maybe looking for that reaction and to include an audience. You have to remember as well, one of the things I love to tell people is that if a player or a manager in the men or the women's game that they really, really like Don't let anybody tell you, oh, they're rubbish, they're useless. I'll give you an example. I rate Mark Albrighton really highly. How he's never been capped by England is a complete mystery to me. And I get told by Arsenal fans, Mark Albrighton's useless. But Mark Albrighton is a Premier League winner and an FA Cup winner with Leicester City. Not with Manchester United, Liverpool or Arsenal, but with Leicester City. And he's a wonderfully intelligent footballer, even since his days at Aston Villa. So it's very much, a sign of the times where people like to, for example, Ramsdale received an awful lot of criticism. But, Bournemouth fans were very knowledgeable about his presence in a goalkeeping area. And also the same with Sheffield United. So it's very much, you have to players develop at their own pace and make sure we support them at all times.
Yep, absolutely agree. Look, Lottie, on that point that I made originally, just about some of the way the opposition fans interact with us or seem to have a bit of a chip on their shoulder about Arsenal. Do you see it as well as an Arsenal content creator, or is it something that I'm seeing more as an international fan? What are your views on that?
Do you know what? I think it's a bit of both. Even some of our own fans have got a chip on their shoulder. I don't mean to be funny. Some of their reactions are just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, a lot of us have been spoilt with the early years of winning the Gold Premier League trophy, that sort of end, and it sort of became. I'm in that age group where it's like I expect them to win, but it's obviously fizzled out over the years. I mean, I think there was an interview with what's his name on TalkSport. I actually can't stand him. He used to play for Spurs, but he turned around and said at the time when Chelsea had won a European trophy, yeah, you're the most successful club in London at the moment, but you're not the biggest. He's a Spurs fan, and he knows for a fact that Arsenal are the biggest club in London, and that's just fact. I think with other fans, what it is, they know our fan base is extremely reactionary, and we are, and that is why we are baited so much, and you see so many reactions from people. Even the media knows this.
Yeah,
we're just baited, and a lot of certain sections. I'm not saying it's everybody. Certain sections will bite on that and react to it, and will have arguments over it, even though it's something really petty.
Yeah, no, look, I've noticed it a lot from afar. Obviously, I've had the privilege of watching Arsenal play overseas, and there's nothing quite like it. But I also feel like, as an international fan, when you're not at the match, you kind of absorb more of that social media side during a game as well. So it is interesting. Look, I'm not going to go too far into this. I might just make it quick. I might address it quickly. Chris, who is a Chelsea fan, but great guy, good friend of the show, says, look, in his opinion, maybe AFTV have made Arsenal a bit more of a target. I know, and Cannon Chatter have a similar kind of philosophy than us on this. I don't really go into speaking about other channels unless I'm going to be really complimentary or I want to give them a plug. AFTV don't need a plug from me if you look at their numbers. But look, each to their own, and I just kind of live by the motto, if I don't like the content, I won't watch it. And if I do like the content, I'll make sure I'm up at 6 a.m. to watch it, like Cannon Chatter. We've got Mo in here from the Blue Lounge. He runs a great Chelsea show. I've had the privilege of being on there. Thank you, Mo. We've got RJ, co-host as well. Absolutely the best co-host from our show, RJ. I'm glad you know it. Look, let's look a bit more in depth at October, because we had that absolutely dominant performance against Villa. We had, for me, what was potentially our best performance of the season this morning for me, or last night against Leicester. Who's been the difference makers for you guys? Now, what I'm trying to say is, which players or staff do you feel are most responsible for kind of turning us around and getting us a little bit into some more consistent football? James, might start with you. Maybe if you just give us one player or staff member who you think's making a difference.
Emil Smith-Rowe is, for me, making a massive difference. I think it's great to see his presence on the pitch. You really see it now. And I'm not saying it because we have the same, or in his case, second surname, and we're not related. It's much as many people might think we are. I just think he's got a great presence, and people love to talk about the links that he had with Aston Villa. But what they don't know is when Emile Smith-Rowe wasn't playing, he was also linked with Monaco. And Monaco are many things, they're not slow on the uptake in terms of identifying brilliant footballers. And he's really coming into his own. I remember seeing him play for Unai Emery's Arsenal against Sporting Lisbon when I returned for a match in 2018 against Sporting Lisbon. And he was being kicked from pillar to post. He was being targeted by a very physical Sporting Lisbon team, which included the likes of Nani, Jeremy Mathieu, and also Acuna. And he really stood his ground. It wasn't the greatest game you'll ever see, but when I watched him in that game, I thought he's got something about him. And he went on loan to Huddersfield. And I was recently fortunate to speak to his former teammate, Harry Tafolo. And he was saying, even training together, you can see he was coming into his own. He was enjoying the responsibility of going out on loan. And you can see in his reactions when Arsenal score, he's got a huge smile on his face. He's really, really happy. And he's coming into his own. And we've got to let him carry on in that vein now. And don't hype him up too much because he's doing really well. But I think he's the driving force behind us turning a corner, in my opinion.
Lottie?
I was going to say Smith-Rowe, but I'm going to go with one of our new signings. I'm going to go with Sambi. It's just nice to have a midfielder you can trust to do his job. There's 1 or 2 games he's been out of sorts, but for 22 years, he's recently turned 22. So for 22 years old, he's doing absolutely incredible. The way he's just filled in with 34 out. I do apologise. Scott will fill you on Cannon Chat. We can't say his name. I'm sorry, guys, but I am referring to the Arsenal player in the 34 shirt. With him out, I think he's just fitted in really nicely. There's 1 or 2 learning curves for him still to get over, but I just think he's been brilliant.
Yeah, look, hard to argue with both of those. And Lottie, this is a safe space. It's a Football Thing is a safe space. There are no Chelsea or Man United fans here at the moment live. You can say Granit Xhaka if you'd like. I know the name hurts. I wanted to quickly, before I speak about my difference maker, just welcome Lee. He's saying that he called the 2-goal win, Lottie, yesterday.
He did.
Well,
he did on our preview show.
Lee, make sure you hit that sub button because I'm doing awful at the predictions, so maybe you can help me out. We've got the Mr. Arsenal podcast here. Hello, welcome, and letting me know not to mention 34. For me, I think the biggest catalyst, and we can all acknowledge that Aaron Ramsdale has just been superb, absolute class, but we'll come to him in a minute. It's been Alex Lacazette for me. Because I've said this, it's been a bit of a theme for me this season that in Arteta's system, playing Aubameyang at the tip of the attack is ineffective. Aubameyang can do many things on a football pitch. Hold the ball up or play in a physical manner. You're asking him to do something that's not in his skill set. You put Lacazette in there, who, despite not being the tallest of footballers, is very strong and very determined and happy to get into those physical battles. And to me, he has brought out the best in the other players around him. Having Lacazette up there has meant that we see Saka shift to the right. We've seen Aubameyang on the left. And then we've had really fluid options for someone like Emile Smith-Rowe. Lacazette, to me, now gives Mikel Arteta and the club a little bit of a conundrum because the assumption was that we're not re-signing Lacazette. He's going. But you look at the dimension that he's brought to this team, and I would probably argue that we should be trying to tie him up to another year or 2 on his contract because he has made the team and the attack much stronger, just to his presence. But we've let this run now to the point where he can entertain bids from other clubs soon enough. So if we do want to keep him, I dare say we're going to have to pay higher wages than if we'd have done this a year ago because we're not very good with contracts. James, might just ask you quickly about Lacazette. Do you think that Arsenal should be looking to re-sign him, or do you think that's going to be a really difficult task?
Personally, I think it's going to be very difficult. I think you've got to look at his age and you've got to look at his length of contract. And the way that Arsenal have gone out of their way to make us more of a youthful first team and squad is something which is building towards the future. It'll be very interesting if they can identify that in a striker sense as well. And we've been so slow on the uptake as regards to contract negotiations in the past, where we haven't been very proactive. You know, you see now contract negotiations at football clubs, even at youth level, where a young professional player goes to sign professional terms for the first time, and his parents are in the same office expecting their mortgage to be paid because, you know, their son's going to become a professional footballer. And behind the scenes, some of the stories are just absolutely unreal. But I think the best thing to do would maybe look to see if we can not move him on, but maybe get some kind of price for him. We had so many players at the door for so little money, you know, in terms of absolutely abject. But I think we're very also at the back that in the department as well. He was very dangerous at Lyon, you know, in Arsenal, and very dangerous. I think I fell away there. I hope you can still hear me. He was very dangerous at Lyon, of course, and he's had his moments with Arsenal. But I think with age and length of contract, I think it's a big old world out there. You know, it's not just England. You know, you've got the whole of Europe, you've got South America, you've got North America, and the scouting department have improved at Arsenal. So it'd be nice to see if they can do that in a striker's sense as well.
Yeah, look, it will definitely be interesting. And before I come to you on Lacazette, Lottie, James, you listed a lot of international leagues, but you didn't mention the A-League here down under. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, just a random tidbit of information. Daniel Sturridge is playing in the Australian Domestic League this season. He's playing for the Perth Glory. Perth is definitely not where it's happening in Australia, but yeah, Dan Sturridge down here. Not that it's Arsenal related, but for me, pretty cool that we'll see Daniel Sturridge down here. He's not even, you wouldn't say he's past it. He's not pushing 38, 39. But Lottie, someone who we know certainly isn't past it is Lacazette, the way he's playing.
Yeah.
Do you think we can tie him down?
Do you know what? As James said, he's at that age where he's coming to the end of his career. He's going to be looking for that one last big contract for a couple of years for some serious money. I think at the moment, I'd give it to him in a heartbeat because the influence he's had on the younger squads and he's mentoring like Smith Rowe, etc. I'd definitely have to keep him in a heartbeat because he's been that player that we needed in those closing minutes. We would have lost to Palace if it wasn't for him. I mean, a lot of people did walk out 20 minutes, 10 minutes before the game, but I was still standing in that North Bank, freezing, hoping for a goal, and he got it. He got it. So I still keep him. I've got a bit of a soft spot for him, but he hasn't had a lot of playing time this season. But when he does get on that pitch, he makes every minute count. And the reason he started for Aston Villa is probably because of his performance for Crystal Palace on the Monday night before. And he earned every single minute that he played.
And you want a player to come on and give the manager a headache. Yeah. So Lacazette's certainly doing that. I just want to acknowledge some people in the live chat. Mr. Silver Fox is here. Good evening, good afternoon. Not sure where in the world you are.
He's in England. He's over here with me. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Legs Rooney, top stuff. My top 4 predictions starting to look more and more realistic. If you guys aren't sure what he's referring to, on our last show, I made the comment, and I did this on a show I'm on Monday nights down under Football Crew with 2 Chelsea fans. So I'm on there with 2 Chelsea fans. Pray for me. I made the comment that Arsenal could challenge for the top 4. I didn't think it was unrealistic that we could challenge. I got slaughtered for that. There were some giggles. There were some comments in the live chat, but we'll get to that in just a sec. I want to see if you guys think it's realistic that we may challenge. we've got here Ramsdale and Lacazette being the two difference makers. This is a nice problem to have, that we can name multiple players as difference makers. We've got Sarit, welcome. Thank you for your support, my man. Matt saying Tomiyasu and Ben White at the back. They've both made our defense the best since God knows when. Again, what a problem to have that we're talking about so many Arsenal players in form. We've got Lee saying he loves watching Aubameyang and Laka work together. Robbie's here. Mr. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer himself. Evening, Rob. We'll be speaking in a couple of nights, my man. Lacazette brings energy into the attack. He's always involved. Can't argue with that. One thing he brings is energy. No matter if there's 4 seconds on the clock or 40 minutes, he will chase. Now, I want to bring up the Premier League table. And I'm going to go to you first on this one, Lottie. I said to 2 Chelsea fans that we could compete for the top 4. Let me zoom in on that a little bit. I got slaughtered. Now, we're probably a little bit biased, obvious reasons, and that's why I'm enjoying this show so much. But do you think we could challenge for this top 4? I know we're only 10 games in. But do you think there's a chance? Because West Ham are currently sitting 4th.
It is possible, but it's all about that goal difference. As you can see, we're on -1 at the moment. So that's the main concern. I'm still going to stick with my top 6. But it is all possible. It's all possible we could take our usual 4 spot back. Anything can happen. As James said earlier, the football season's a very long season. We're only 10 weeks in now. So I think there's another 28 to go. So we'll see. Anything can happen.
100%. James, do you think Arsenal could challenge for the top 4? Or too early to say?
I personally think it's too early to say. We're not even a third of the way through yet. And I think the African Cup of Nations is going to be really telling for Arsenal. Obviously, the African Cup of Nations in January, players going to play for their countries. And people always say about the headache of the African Cup of Nations. You've got to remember how much pride these players have to play for their country. So Arsenal fans might say, we might be hampered by the African Cup of Nations. But you've also got to look at it from a player's point of view, where there's so much pride involved for those players playing for their country. And Africa is a continent as well. You're going to see, especially with the World Cup being improved in terms of participants and getting bigger, you're going to see more of an African influence in the World Cup in the coming years. So really important. I thought that my idea. I think February, in that final push towards the final months of the season, if we can get into the top 4.
Yeah, look, guys, there's a long way. We're, over a quarter of the way through, but anything could happen. Injuries can derail a season. There might be some January madness that happens that could make or break a team's season. We don't know at this point, but when you look at that table, considering that maybe, 6 or 7 matches ago we were finishing 15th or getting relegated, according to some, it's nice to be in that top half and not far from that top 4. That's where we need to be. And I think we've had a fair few years of Mikel Arteta's process. He's been backed. These players themselves have been backed, a lot of them with contracts, because they carry half the responsibility. But they all need to now do their bit, or there is going to be upheaval, in my opinion. But 2 guys who are certainly doing their bit are Bukayo Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe. 2 of our own, and we take immense pride in how well these guys are playing. They've come through the academy. Saka, I think I'm sure it was 100 games. He's played 100 games for Arsenal at his age. I want to start with him. Where do you think his ceiling is, Lottie? Because at the moment, I mean, he's an English international. He, was an active part of the England team in the Euros. He's an active part of our squad. How good do you think Bukayo Saka can become?
Do you know what? At this point, because of his age as well, I don't think he has a glass ceiling. There's so much potential there. He basically carried us last year with Smith Rowe, and he obviously got into the England squad, and he's continuing to play internationally. And I think life's going to take him anywhere he wants to go, as long as he still enjoys the game. I mean, I was sitting at the AFC Wimbledon game. I was literally sitting behind him. Although he was like on the bench, you could see in his face he wanted to be on there. He wanted to be playing, and he wasn't concerned about warming up. He wanted to be playing. He doesn't like sitting on the bench. He loves his football. You can just see that in his face, and you can see it in the way he plays.
Yeah, look, and he plays with so much heart. So much heart. James, do you think there's a ceiling for Saka, or do you think the world is his oyster?
I think the stay injury free as his career goes on is going to be the most important part. There's been so many players that have started so greatly at all levels of world football, only to have some bad injury or to be curtailed at some point. So how big he can become will be dependent on injuries. But I think it's a great stat for Arsenal and for him as an individual. It's great for him as an individual to be so young and to have played so many games, and also for Arsenal Football Club. You know, fans have often disagreed with the buying policy or not giving youth a chance, and here we have one of our own playing more than 100 games for the club. So I think the club also needs a lot of credit. I think it's just he's in a very strong position. International level of recruits, such experience, he's doing really, really well. So it's still very early to tell, but very promising signs. I'm pleased for Lottie that she gets to attend so many games. So I used to attend as many as I can from Amsterdam, but due to COVID, that's been curtailed. But I remember my last game, which was Sheffield United at home in January 2020, and he was the best player on the pitch. Every time he got the ball, he's looking to run forward, and he's blossomed. And I'm really pleased for him. But the telling fact will be if he can stay injury-free.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I think my personal opinion is that the world is his oyster. I do have in the back of my head, and I don't want to put out any negative vibes. It's all happy at the moment, but I do panic that if we're out of Europe for an extended period of time, God forbid. Actually, you know what? I'm saying it, and I'm not panicked. I don't see him being the kind of player who would want to pack it in and say, I need to be playing Champions League football. I was starting to verbalize that, and I changed my mind because I do feel he loves the club, and I hope he can be a one-club man because he will build a legacy.
Scott, you need to remember, he's a Hale End product. He's one of ours. He knows what it means to be wearing that number 7 shirt. I mean, you've seen the pictures of him walking through Hale End with Rocky on the wall. He knows what it means. So does Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe's come out and said, I don't ever want to leave this club. But obviously, Bukayo hasn't. But just time will tell. He knows both of them know what it means to play for this club. I mean, you saw the Thierry Henry celebrations at Tottenham. You know what it means, you know? And I was privileged enough to be behind the goal for all those goals, and it was just absolutely incredible.
And I feel like Saka sometimes gets a little bit of stick about his finishing, and he would be very much aware that that's something he needs to work on, but he's not a striker, so finishing is not going to be, his primary attribute. And he is so young that I feel like that composure and that knack for finishing will come with time. Lottie, you agree?
No, definitely I agree. But what you've got to look at is he's been played a lot on the left recently because of Pepe. He scores, he gets his assists from the right-hand side. If you look at all his stats, he plays better on the right. But then what do you do with Pepe? Pepe can't play exactly the way he wants to play on the left. So it's a case of how Mikel plays them for me. And at the moment, I'm happy to be on the right. That's where he should be, with Smith Rowe on the left.
Pepe gives me I can never make up my mind on him. I don't know, James, might throw this one at you. Do you think Pepe does have a future where he is a consistent starter for Arsenal Football Club, or do you see this being a player that we ultimately may not get the best out of, and it may not be a long-term stay? I worry with Pepe that long term he won't be able to start on the right with Saka tearing it up there. And if I've got to let one go, it's Pepe going, not Saka. What are your thoughts on the Pepe Saka debate?
Well, I think in the long term, I think you're absolutely correct. It wouldn't surprise me if Pepe is linked with a loan, maybe as early as this coming summer, once this season is finished. I think Pepe was an indictment of how Arsenal was at the time to go out and spend 72 million on a player who had a really good season for Lille. And you also have to remember, Unai Emery, when he was in charge of Arsenal, had Raul Cinielli coming into his changing room. That's his domain with his players. And you've got Cinielli coming in and barking orders and literally reading the riot act after an away game or after a home game, which wasn't conducive to a positive environment along the time of his reign. But I think the most important thing, and this is a thing for Arsenal fans as well, people watching us today, international fans as well, we are one family. People love to say about international fans maybe not being as important as local fans. I was born in North London, and before COVID, I would return from Amsterdam, where I now live, to North London to watch my team. So I'm also aware of the international fans getting up at very, very early times, disrupting their weekend, their family life, their social life to watch their team. And that also needs to be respected. It really does. It's very much a world game, and we are one big global family, and that's how it's become. But one thing I would say is for all fans watching today, Arsenal fans have been guilty, both at home and abroad, of following the price tag of a footballer. Oh, he's worth £50 million, so he must be brilliant. You've also got to look at the journey of a professional footballer. I mean, we have, for example, Gabriel, who we signed from Lille, but not many people know that he played for Troyes and he played for Dynamo Zagreb. So the journey of a footballer of playing for Dynamo Zagreb and Troyes and then for Arsenal, I'm pleased to say that I think I'm noticing the younger generation coming away from being dictated to by the price tag. And that's why I said earlier on in this podcast, if you have a player that you really like and you really rate, stick with him or her. Nobody can tell you it's wrong, because if you believe he's a very good footballer or she is a very good footballer and you think that he will be good for Arsenal, then you've got every right to claim that and tell the world in that respect.
Yeah, look, well said, guys. I'm again so glad I could have you both joining me. It's really nice to just have some good Arsenal chat on this channel. And if you are here for the first time, please make sure you hit the like button on the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Plenty of quality here. We know Lottie's always joining us. She's a regular here too. So plenty of Arsenal chat, just sometimes with a bit of Man U and Chelsea banter at the same time. Now, I've put up 3 fixtures that we've got in November. We have Watford at home. Then we have an away trip to Anfield. And then we play Newcastle. How many points are we getting from these games, Lottie?
6 or 7. 6 or 7. I don't expect to win at Anfield. Don't expect it because they're absolutely on fire at the moment. The other 2, we're at home. We're on a run of 9 games now, undefeated at home. Or in general, I should say.
Yeah.
But we have the last time I saw us lose at home was to Chelsea beginning of the season. So we're on a run. I think we've got this. 6 or 7 points. We'll be lucky to get draw in Anfield. So I'm leaning more towards the 6 for me.
Yeah, look, hands on heart, I lean towards the 6 as well. I watched Liverpool absolutely dismantle and humiliate Manchester United, which was brilliant. It was probably my favourite non-Arsenal game that I've watched in a very long time. But I do fear what they can do in attack. However, on the flip side, our defence has looked very good. So I think we could be in for another one of those big, high-scoring Liverpool-Arsenal matches. So I'm not sure. I'm going with 6 on this one. I do think Liverpool may edge us, but I would love to be wrong. James, how many points in November?
I think 7. But I think a really important factor will be it's the last round of international matches for the World Cup. So you're going to have so many players all over the Premier League and different leagues that are going to be absolutely shattered, not so much physically, but mentally, because the World Cup comes around once every 4 years and they're going to be giving their last pieces of energy to get their team over the line. It's going to be a very exciting international break. And the fallout from that as well, with players coming back injury-free, coming back fresh, is going to be very important. I think we might see some strange results as well. I think Liverpool, I think they have of European commits. They're in a difficult European group, even though they're making mince and they're doing an excellent job. It's still a difficult group that they found themselves in, even though they're making light work of it. So very interesting to see how teams come back fresh. But we have just got to, I know it sounds very cliche, but you've got to take one game at a time. You know, it's a very long season, and fans have got to try to enjoy the season. I see a lot of people, especially when we had the 3 defeats where people were saying, oh, this is awful, and fighting amongst themselves. We are Arsenal fans. You've got to try to enjoy football seasons, you know, and sometimes you have good times and bad times, and the great thing is to stick with them through thick and thin.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Guys, having you both here for some Arsenal chat has been absolutely phenomenal. I'm so grateful to both of you for coming on. I do want to end with some quick fire questions. I didn't tell you we'd do these, but just throwing some questions at you, 1-word answers, not too much time to think. But before we do that, Lottie, just quickly, and I know I've put the details in the description, quickly tell everyone about Team Cannon Chatter if they haven't already seen it.
Okay, so you can come find us live tomorrow night at 9 p.m. UK time. I believe that's about 6 o'clock in the morning your time, Scott.
6
is that
a.m.
right?
for us. Yeah.
But you can always watch us back. I know Scott gets up most mornings when we see him in the chat just before the end, so it's absolutely fine, which is great. We absolutely love Scott coming into our chat. We're also live on Wednesday. G's got a new show, so definitely come and check that out. I've got some content coming on Thursday. Fortunately, I can't reveal what it is, but tune in tomorrow and find out what it is. The Lottie show is returning, which is very exciting.
Hey, there's some good news.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It'll be my second show ever. So it'll be very, very exciting stuff. If you want to come and find me on Twitter, it's at Lottie B. I've missed the B on the screen. So it's at Lottie, 2 I's, 2 T's, _B on Twitter. Or if you want to come and check out Cannon Chatter, it's at Cannon Chatter.
And all their info is in the description. James, before we do these quick fires, tell us a little bit more about what you do and where we can find you.
Well, you can follow my interviews on the Secret Footballer website. I'm exclusive to them in terms of publishing my interviews with professional players and managers. If you click on the link in the description, you'll see my authors page, which includes the likes of the legend, it's Alan's former Arsenal striker, Trevor Steven, he played for Marseille, and also a fair few familiar faces from all levels of world football, not just about their careers, but also the human element. So really pleased about that. And we strive to publish every 3 days. Upcoming interviews include the likes of Richard Snakers, who played for Bolton Wanderers and West Bromwich Albion, Paul Devlin, who Birmingham City and Watford fans will know, and also former England international Terry Fenwick, who came up against the timing Diego Maradona in '86. So really interested to see how that's received. And as I say, you can follow me on at James Rowe NL, and also keep an eye on the Secret Footballer website.
And all the information for that is in the description, because I know there'll be a fair few Aussie Gooners watching this one back in the morning. All right. The way our quickfires work, it's normally myself, Robbie, and RJ doing these. I'll put out a question. There's no judgment here. Give your quickest answer. Don't overthink it too much. Number 1. Now, Lottie, I know you go to most of the games. James, I know you have a little bit of a mixture. But do you have a match day tradition? Lottie, you first.
Oh, going to 12 pins and then into the game.
Excellent. So, look, for me...
12 pins is a pub, by the way, guys. I do apologise.
Sorry, what was that?
12 pins is a pub.
I knew. I tried to get in last time I was there, but it was packed,
You
and I
need to
was
get there
running
early.
late. I
Need to
was
get there
very
early.
much confused. Very confused. For me, I'll wear. Obviously, my beautiful wife washes them because I'm hopeless with the washing machine. But I'll wear the same jersey for every Arsenal fixture. Now I wore this one for Leicester, so I'll keep wearing this one until we lose. Then once we lose, it has to be washed and put at the bottom of the pile, and I need to wear a new one. I'll need that clean winning feeling. Wash the defeat off, rotate the jersey. What about you, James? Any match day traditions?
Well, when I would return from the Netherlands to Arsenal to watch Arsenal, I would take the metro from St Pancras International, King's Cross down to Arsenal, exit Arsenal, go and buy my match day programme, of which I have so many through the years. I always go and walk around Avenel Road. I always like to walk down Avenel Road and just think of the memories at the North Bank and the Clock End and the East Stand and the West before going to the Emirates to take my seat and catch up with a few Gooners that I know. So that's my pre-match ritual in terms of when I would return to Arsenal for games. Hopefully that time will come again. I've got a sharp eye on Brentford in February, but it very much depends on COVID and the restrictions from both ends, from the Netherlands and the UK.
Fingers crossed things go well. Lee's saying that the match day tradition is paying respect to Highbury. It's probably, Lee, my biggest, one of my bigger life regrets is that I never got a chance to get to Highbury. That's one. I got there maybe, I think it was our second season at the Emirates. I was over there. I just didn't look after my pennies. I didn't save them up. I was a little bit younger and liked shiny things and flashy things. So that's one of my big regrets. I wish I could have got there because everything I've heard is just mind-blowing. But let's shift from football to music. Greatest band of all time, James.
Oh, you're enough putting me on the spot.
I am.
You're enough putting me on the spot because I love all different themes of music. I would say a band that meant a lot to me was the Manchester band, the Stone Roses. I think they were so underrated even now. I saw them play in Amsterdam back in, I think, 2012 on like a reunion tour. And I saw John Squire playing his guitar, and that was worth the admission alone. It was just unreal. Absolutely unreal. So for people watching that aren't aware of the Stone Roses, their self-titled album is still one of the greatest albums ever made. So check that one out.
Lottie?
I think at the moment for me, you might actually be quite surprised about this, Scott. It's actually Cruella. I actually love the pair of them. I know they're Australian, but I just enjoy it. I enjoy them. It's something different to what I normally listen to. Like James, I listen to all sorts, but right now it's them for me.
Okay. Well, look, you and I can do the Lacazette Aubameyang handshake because I'm agreeing with Lee. For me, it's Queen, timeless.
Yeah,
have to go to Queen. So I'll show some love to my friends in the UK. I want to give you two more questions, guys. If you could pick any player to be completely injury-free in their career, who would it be? For me, it's Abu Diaby. I was so excited about Diaby. I honestly thought he was going to be kind of the heir to Patrick Vieira's throne. And when he was fit, he did some things that I just saw and I was absolutely in awe of. But for me, a Gooner, I would have loved to see injury-free Abu Diaby. I just feel he had such bad luck. What about you, James?
Eduardo for me. I think he was so lethal in that season, in the run-up to that injury. It was like, I'm not trying to compare in terms of with Messi in terms of footballing ability, but just the panache of some of his goals was just nothing short of incredible. And I think Eduardo, if we hadn't have suffered that injury, we could have well gone on to win that league, and we would have seen him improve even more. So for me, I think Eduardo for me.
Lottie, I deliberately left you to last because I could see you were really trying to think. So we've bought you time.
That's where I choose between Santi Cazorla and Thomas Rosicky. I can't do it. I can't do
You
it.
can
It's
say
got to be
both.
both of
You
them.
can say
I'm
both.
seeing both. Both of them. I love them. All the time they were at Arsenal, I always had one shirt for him and one shirt for Santi. Always. Pair of them. They're just it's beautiful to watch. The skill, talent, I loved it. They were Arsenal through and through as well.
You had the little Mozart and the little magician. So both of them, I mean, physically, they weren't what you'd expect from a dominating Premier League midfielder, but boy, oh boy, did they do well. Lee saying Wilshere. Yeah, that's another great shout. Another very good shout. All right, guys, last one, because I know you've got the day ahead of you and I've got my bed waiting for me. If you could hit the town with any Arsenal player, past or present, who would you hit the town with and why? James, might start with you.
For me, it would be hitting the town with Dennis Bergkamp. I think I'm fortunate enough to live in his hometown, to live in his country, and I think to hit the town with him and to be able to converse with him and to laugh and to joke with him in his mother tongue, I think that would be extremely special. I was fortunate enough to interview his nephew, Roland, who played for Brighton and Hove Albion many years ago. And whether I'll get to interview the great man himself, I'm not so sure. But I think if I do, I think I'll retire then, because the ability to interview him in his mother tongue and speak to him in his mother tongue would just be fairy tale stuff, I reckon.
Yeah, fair shout. Lee saying that he'd hit the town with Righty. You'd have a blast. Look, hard to argue with that. Lottie, who are you hitting the town with?
I'm going to go for someone a bit strange. I would go with... I'd like to hit the town with Paul Merson. Before my time, but that would be some fun. His reactions on the pitch, I think he'd be a good laugh.
All right. Well, look, we have all gone very different with this because I'm going with the Lord, Nicholas Bentner. I think hitting the town with Nicholas Bentner would just be an absolute... I'm just talking purely in terms of fun. I think you would have a cracking time. Might get into some mischief, but being an Aussie, we don't mind a little bit of mischief on the night out. So certainly Nick Bentner for me. But guys, I honestly appreciate you both coming on. Check out Cannon Chatter and Lottie. Check out James and all of his work. And as he said earlier, he really tries to get that human side of a football interview. Sometimes when you read a player being interviewed, it's just stats, goals, memories on the pitch. But I know with James, he really does try and find out about the person too. So his interviews are commendable. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure talking Arsenal with you for the last 58 minutes. I hope you have a great day. Any final comments, Lottie?
Thanks for tuning in and thank you for having me again, Scott. Honestly, it's been a privilege.
It's been long overdue. I feel like this has needed to happen for a little while. I've got to jump on with you guys on Cannon Chatter again as well. I need to get away from these Chelsea and us and Man United boys. James, any final words, mate?
Really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on, and I hope the Arsenal fans remember how proud we've all got to be about that amazing cannon on our chest.
Absolutely. Fine words. Take care. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. And come on, you Gunners.